The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 different species gathered for an emergency session. Ambassador Zektar of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his breathing apparatus nervously, his 4 eyes scanning the holographic displays that showed disturbing footage from the Outer Rim territories. "This cannot be possible," whispered Counselor Yathana, her serpentine form coiled tightly around her hovering platform. The images before them showed something that defied everything they thought they knew about the primitive species, called humans. Entire Zephyrian battle fleets, once considered the most advanced military force in the galaxy, now drifted as twisted metal wreckage among the stars. High Chancellor Mordak, a towering insectoid creature with mandibles that clicked when he spoke, called for order. His compound eyes reflected the horror of what they were witnessing. "Fellow council members, we must face the truth. 3 cycles ago, we authorized what we believed would be a simple pacification mission against the human homeworld. The Zephyrian Armada was sent to demonstrate the consequences of refusing our trade agreements." The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of translation devices. Every species present remembered the debate 3 cycles ago. Humanity had rejected the Council's generous offer to join their galactic community under the standard terms. The terms were always the same for primitive species: surrender sovereignty, provide raw materials and labor, accept technological dependence, and submit to Council authority. Most species accepted within days of first contact. Humans had done something unprecedented. They had said no. "The humans were supposed to be helpless," continued Mordak, his voice carrying a tremor that betrayed his usually confident demeanor. "Our intelligence reports showed they had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their weapons were primitive projectile systems and crude nuclear devices. They had no energy shields, no plasma weaponry, no gravitic manipulators. By all calculations, the Zephyrian fleet should have subdued their entire system within hours." Ambassador Krillnox of the Aquatic Federation raised one of her tentacles, water dripping from her environmental suit. "High Chancellor, perhaps you could explain how a fleet of 500 advanced warships, equipped with void-piercing cannons and reality distortion fields, could be completely destroyed by a species that still uses chemical rockets?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Mordak activated the central hologram, and the chamber was filled with the final transmission from Admiral Zefgoth, commander of the now-destroyed Armada. The Admiral's usual blue-green skin had turned a sickly pale color as alarms blared in the background of his command ship. "Council Command, this is Admiral Zefgoth. The humans, they are not what we expected. Repeat, they are not what we expected. Our initial bombardment of their outer defense station succeeded, but then something changed. They stopped running. High Chancellor, I need you to understand what I am about to tell you. The humans have been deliberately hiding their true capabilities." Static crackled through the transmission, as explosions could be heard in the distance. "They call it asymmetric warfare. While we focused on building larger ships with stronger shields, they focused on making smaller, faster vessels that can strike from unexpected angles. Their ships appear to be constructed with some kind of adaptive armor that learns from our weapons. Each hit makes them stronger against that type of attack." The recording showed the bridge of the Admiral's flagship shaking violently. "But that is not the worst part, High Chancellor. The worst part is what they do with their damaged ships. Instead of retreating for repairs, they accelerate them directly at our vessels and detonate their reactors on impact. They sacrifice their own ships and crews willingly to destroy ours." "What kind of species does this?" Counselor Yathana's scales turned a deep purple color, indicating extreme distress among her people. "This cannot be standard human behavior. Perhaps they were defending their breeding grounds." "No," came the Admiral's voice through the static, now barely audible over the sounds of his ship's death. "We monitored their communications. They were not defending their homeworld. They were hunting us. They spoke of something called vengeance. They spoke of making an example. High Chancellor, I believe we may have awakened something that was better left sleeping. The humans, they fight like the ancient demons from Clorvian mythology. They seem to actually enjoy combat." The transmission cut to static, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. No one spoke for several minutes as they processed what they had heard. Throughout galactic history, warfare had been conducted according to established principles. Ships would engage at maximum range, shields would be tested, and the side with superior technology would emerge victorious with minimal casualties. Deliberate ramming attacks were considered the action of primitives or the desperately insane. High Chancellor Mordak's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep anxiety. There is more. Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity in the human system following the battle. They were not mourning their dead or rebuilding their defenses. They were constructing something. Our xenobiologists believe they may be preparing some form of retaliation. Retaliation? Ambassador Zektar's four eyes widened in disbelief. Against the entire Galactic Council, they must realize that we represent the combined military might of 47 species across 12 sectors of the galaxy. Even if they somehow defeated the Zephyrian fleet through trickery, they cannot seriously believe they can challenge all of us. Mordak activated another hologram, this one showing deep space sensor readings from the human system. 3 days ago, our monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures emanating from the human homeworld. Whatever they are building, it is consuming the energy output of their entire star. Our scientists estimate that the power requirements exceed anything in our databases. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Energy signatures of that magnitude suggested technologies that the Council had never encountered. Some species theorized that the humans might be constructing a planetary defense shield, while others suggested they might be building a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Yathana, her voice barely above a whisper, we should consider negotiating with them. If they possess technology that can threaten our fleets, it might be wise to approach them as equals rather than subjects. The suggestion was met with outrage from several council members. The Drakmarian representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, spoke with a voice like crackling lightning. Impossible. The Council has never negotiated with primitives as equals. To do so now would set a dangerous precedent. Every other species would begin to question our authority. High Chancellor Mordak raised his primary arms for silence. The question before us is not whether we should negotiate. The question is whether we can afford not to discover what the humans are planning before it is too late. I am authorizing a reconnaissance mission to the human system. We must know what we are dealing with before we can formulate an appropriate response. As the council session ended, and representatives began departing for their respective ships, none of them noticed the small probe that had been silently monitoring their gathering from the shadows of the chamber's upper reaches. The probe's sophisticated recording equipment had captured every word of the debate, and its quantum communication array was already transmitting the data across impossible distances to a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen smiled grimly as she reviewed the intelligence report. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had stumbled upon advanced technology. They had no idea that humanity's greatest weapon was not their ships or their reactors, but their ability to learn, adapt, and turn any situation to their advantage. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display in the Earth Defense Command Center, watching as real-time data streamed in from dozens of monitoring stations throughout human space. The alien reconnaissance fleet had arrived exactly as her intelligence teams had predicted. 12 ships, each the size of a small city, hung in space just beyond the heliopause of the Sol system, their sensors sweeping across human territory with casual arrogance. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Commander Park from the communication station, "we're receiving the Standard Council survey broadcast. They're demanding information about our defensive capabilities and industrial output. Same package they sent to the Kepler colonies before glassing them." Chen's jaw tightened as she remembered the footage from Kepler 442b. An entire human settlement of 50,000 people had been reduced to radioactive ash because they had refused to surrender their mining rights to the Council. That had been humanity's first real introduction to galactic politics, and the lesson had been clear: submit or die. "Send them our standard response," Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to set in motion. "Full compliance with Council survey protocols. Make it look like we're scared but trying to cooperate." Across the command center, hundreds of technicians worked at stations that would have seemed impossible just 5 years ago. The technology represented a fusion of human engineering and salvaged alien hardware. Reverse engineered from every Council ship, that had ever made the mistake of underestimating human determination. The Zephyrian fleet had provided particularly useful components after their defeat. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the chief science officer, approached Chen's position carrying a tablet displaying power consumption data. "Admiral, the Prometheus array is drawing energy at 97% of the sun's total output. We're maintaining the illusion that it's a defensive shield, but those ships out there will figure out the truth eventually. Their sensors are more sophisticated than the Zephyrian equipment. How long do we have?" Chen asked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display where red dots represented the alien reconnaissance fleet. "Based on their scanning patterns, I estimate 6 hours before they realize that the energy signatures don't match any known defensive technology. Once they understand what we're actually building, they'll either retreat to warn the Council or attempt to destroy the installation." Chen nodded grimly. 6 hours to complete a project that would either secure humanity's future in the galaxy or ensure their complete extinction. Status of the volunteer crews? Captain Rodriguez, head of fleet operations, consulted his own display. "All 1,000 ghost ships are crewed and ready for deployment. The volunteers understand that this is a one-way mission. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer knows they won't be coming home. The ghost ships were humanity's answer to the Council's technological superiority. Unable to match alien shield technology or weapons power, human engineers had taken a different approach. They had built ships designed to be destroyed, vessels whose only purpose was to deliver their payloads and die in the process. Each ghost ship carried a crew of volunteers who had willingly accepted a suicide mission for the chance to strike back at humanity's oppressors. "Admiral," called Sensor Chief Williams, "the alien fleet is moving to a closer inspection orbit. They're positioning themselves around our outer system defenses, probably preparing to demand a demonstration of our shield capabilities." Chen smiled coldly. The Council species had grown arrogant over millennia of easy conquests. They expected every encounter to follow the same pattern: overwhelming technological display, immediate surrender, and incorporation into their empire as a tributary species. They could not conceive of a species that would choose extinction over submission. "Begin Phase 1, Chen ordered. "Deploy the bait squadrons." Across human space, automated distress beacons activated on schedule. To the alien sensors, it would appear that Earth's defensive fleet was suffering massive system failures and requesting emergency assistance from outer colonies. The signals were designed to draw the reconnaissance fleet closer, to make them believe that humanity's defenses were collapsing under the strain of maintaining their supposed shield technology. Meanwhile, in the hidden shipyards of Luna's far side, the Ghost Fleet began its silent launch sequence. 1,000 ships, each painted with radar-absorbing compounds and equipped with advanced stealth systems salvaged from Council technology, slipped away from their moorings like shadows in the void. Their crews sang ancient battle songs and recorded final messages to loved ones they would never see again. The alien fleet took the bait exactly as predicted. As the Council ships moved deeper into the solar system to investigate the apparent defensive failures, they crossed the invisible perimeter that Chen had been waiting for. The moment their lead vessels passed the orbit of Neptune, she gave the signal that would begin humanity's first real offensive action in the Galactic War. Activate Prometheus. Deep beneath the surface of Mercury, in facilities that had been carved from solid rock over the past 3 years, fusion reactors the size of city blocks roared to life. The planet's entire crust had been converted into a massive weapons platform, its core replaced with technology that pushed the boundaries of physics. The installation drew power directly from the sun through an array of collection satellites, converting stellar energy into something that no Council species had ever imagined possible. The Prometheus array was not a shield. It was a weapon designed to rewrite the fundamental structure of space-time itself within a localized area. Human scientists had discovered that while they could not match alien technology in conventional warfare, they could use their understanding of physics to create weapons that operated on entirely different principles. "Prometheus is online," Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice tight with barely controlled excitement. "We're detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the target zone. The alien fleet is beginning to experience navigation difficulties." On the tactical display, Chen watched as the 12 Council ships suddenly found themselves struggling against gravitational forces that seemed to shift and change without warning. Their advanced propulsion systems, designed to operate in normal space-time, were useless against weapons that attacked the very fabric of reality. Ghost Fleet is in position, Captain Rodriguez reported. All ships report ready for final approach. Chen took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or joined the countless others who had been crushed beneath the Council's rule. The ghost ships were already accelerating toward their targets, their crews having activated the systems that would prevent any possibility of retreat or capture. "This is Admiral Chen to all Ghost Fleet commanders," she spoke into her communication device, knowing that her words were being transmitted to 1,000 volunteers who had chosen death over surrender. "Today humanity stops being prey. Today we show the galaxy that some species cannot be conquered. Today, we teach the Council that there are worse things than defeat. Execute Fenrir Protocol." The response came back from 1,000 voices speaking in unison. "For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who comes after us." On the display, the ghost ships suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds as their crews activated the final components of their sacrifice. Each vessel carried a payload designed by human engineers who had studied every piece of Council technology they could acquire. The weapons were not designed to destroy the alien ships quickly or cleanly. They were designed to ensure that any survivors would carry a very specific message back to the Council. As the first ghost ship reached its target, Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Council had expected to find a primitive species cowering behind improvised defenses. Instead, they had discovered something that would haunt their dreams for generations to come. A species that was willing to pay any price for the chance to drag their enemies down with them. The real demonstration was just beginning, and Chen intended to make sure that every species in the galaxy learned exactly what happened when they threatened humanity's children. Commander Vexthal of the Council reconnaissance vessel. Inevitable Victory had witnessed the subjugation of 17 different species over his 4-decade military career. He had seen worlds burn and civilizations crumble when they dared to resist the Council's generous offers of protection. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for what was happening in the human system. "Navigation report," he commanded, his multiple vocal cords creating a harmonic buzz that indicated extreme stress. The bridge around him flickered with warning lights as his ship's advanced gravitational compensators struggled against forces that should not exist in normal space. "Commander, we are experiencing localized space-time distortions of unknown origin," Navigation Officer Clethera reported, her 6 limbs working frantically at her control station. "Our positioning systems show we are simultaneously in 3 different locations, none of which correspond to our actual coordinates. The humans appear to have weaponized dimensional mathematics." The ship shuddered as another wave of distorted gravity swept through the fleet. On the tactical display, Vexthal could see his sister ships experiencing similar difficulties. The mighty vessels that had crushed the resistance of a dozen worlds now drifted helplessly like debris in a cosmic storm. "Impossible," whispered Science Officer Drakmore, his crystalline form pulsing with confused patterns of light. "Our databases contain no records of any species developing gravitational weapons. The energy requirements alone should exceed anything a single system civilization could produce." "Commander," Communications Officer Rathgen interrupted urgently, "we're detecting multiple incoming objects on collision courses. Small craft approximately 1,000 units approaching at velocities that exceed our point defense capabilities." Vexthal felt a chill of recognition run through his exoskeleton. The humans were launching a ramming attack, just like they had done against Admiral Zefgoth's fleet. But this time there were so many more ships, and they were approaching with a coordination that suggested careful planning rather than desperate improvisation. "Activate all defensive systems," he ordered. "Target the incoming vessels and destroy them before they reach effective range." The Inevitable Victory's weapons arrays came online with deadly precision. Plasma cannons that could vaporize entire city blocks began tracking the approaching human ships, while particle beam emitters charged to full power. The other Council vessels followed suit, creating a defensive network that should have been impenetrable to any attack by primitive spacecraft. But as the first wave of human ships entered weapons range, something unprecedented happened. Instead of attempting to evade or return fire, the human vessels began transmitting on all frequencies simultaneously. The transmissions contained detailed tactical information about Council ship designs, weapon capabilities, and defensive protocols. Information that should have been impossible for humans to possess. Commander, Rathgin's voice cracked with disbelief. The humans are broadcasting our complete tactical database. They know everything about our ships, our weapons, our standard operating procedures. They are transmitting this information to every monitoring station in this sector of the galaxy. The implications hit Vexthul like a physical blow. If other species learned the details of Council military technology, it would eliminate the technological advantage that had kept the Galactic Empire stable for millennia. Worse, the humans seemed to be deliberately ensuring that their knowledge would survive even if they were completely destroyed. "Jam their transmissions," he commanded desperately. "Impossible, Commander. They are using our own communication protocols against us. The signals are being routed through our own relay networks. Every attempt to block them only amplifies their reach." On the display, the first human ship reached the outer edge of the plasma cannon envelope. Instead of being vaporized instantly as expected, the vessel seemed to absorb the energy discharge and continue its approach. As more ships entered the defensive grid, it became clear that they had been specifically designed to survive Council weapons long enough to deliver their payloads. "How are they doing this?" Drakmor demanded, his crystalline structure flashing with patterns of confusion and fear. "Their ships should not be able to withstand our weapons. Analysis indicates adaptive armor, constructed from salvaged Council materials," replied the ship's tactical computer in its emotionless mechanical voice. "Each impact strengthens their defensive systems against similar attacks. Recommend switching to kinetic weapons." But the kinetic weapons proved equally ineffective. The human ships seemed to incorporate lessons learned from every previous encounter with Council forces. They carried armor designed to defeat plasma weapons, shields tuned to deflect particle beams, and electronic warfare systems that turned Council defensive networks against themselves. "Commander," called the tactical officer, "the lead human vessel is now within ramming distance." "Impact in 30 seconds. Vexthul watched in horrified fascination as the approaching ship suddenly split open like a flower blooming in reverse. Instead of a conventional ramming attack, the vessel revealed itself to be a delivery system for something far more sophisticated. Dozens of smaller devices emerged from the ship's interior, each one aimed at a critical system on the Council vessel. "Boarding pods," he whispered, recognizing the design from historical databases. "But no species has used boarding actions for over 2 millennia. It is considered barbaric." The human boarding pods attach themselves to the hull of the inevitable Victory, with magnetic clamps designed specifically for Council ship architecture. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the vessel as the pods began cutting through the outer hull, with tools that seemed to melt metal rather than cut it. "Security teams to all breach points," Vexthul commanded. "Repel boarders with maximum force." But as reports began flooding in from across the ship, it became clear that the humans had not come aboard to conquer or capture. They had come to plant something. Explosive devices, but not designed to destroy the ship quickly. Instead, they seemed intended to disable specific systems while leaving the crew compartments intact. "Commander, this is Security Chief Gorthax," came a transmission from deep within the ship. "The human boarding parties are not attempting to engage our security forces. They are placing charges on our communication arrays, our long-range sensors, and our jump drive components. It appears they want to ensure that we cannot escape or call for help, but they do not intend to kill us." The realization struck Vexthul like ice water in his veins. The humans did not want to simply destroy the Council fleet. They wanted witnesses. They wanted survivors to carry word of what had happened here back to the Council chambers. As the last of the human ships reached their targets, a new transmission filled the communication channels. This time it was not tactical data or military intelligence. It was a message directed specifically at him and his surviving crew members. "Council forces, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. You came here believing that you were investigating a primitive species that had somehow acquired dangerous technology through accident or theft. You were wrong. We are not primitives who stumbled upon advanced weapons. We are humans. And we have been preparing for this war since the moment we learned of your existence." The transmission was accompanied by data files that made Vexthul's ichor freeze in his veins. Technical specifications for weapons that pushed the boundaries of known physics, strategic analyses of every major Council military installation within 50 light-years. Most terrifying of all, detailed psychological profiles of key council leadership, including personal information that should have been impossible for any outside species to obtain. You will return to your council masters, Admiral Chen continued, and you will deliver this message exactly as I give it to you. Humanity refuses to submit. We refuse to be conquered. We refuse to be eliminated. And if you attempt to destroy us, we will ensure that the cost of victory exceeds any possible benefit you might gain. The transmission ended, leaving the Council fleet drifting helplessly in space with their weapons disabled and their communication systems compromised. Around them, the gravitational distortions were beginning to fade, but the damage to their ships would take days to repair. They were stranded in enemy territory, completely at the mercy of a species they had dismissed as primitive. As Vexthul contemplated the implications of what he had witnessed, he realized that the Council had made a fundamental error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory, just as it had with every other species they had encountered. But humans had something that no other species in Council records possessed: the ability to turn weakness into strength, to use their enemies' advantages against them, and to find ways to win battles that they should have lost by every logical calculation. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Vexthul found himself wondering if the Council had finally encountered an enemy they could not defeat. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in progress for 16 hours straight, and High Chancellor Mordak could feel the weight of galactic civilization pressing down on his carapace. Around the crystalline chamber, representatives from 47 species argued in overlapping voices that created a cacophony of fear and confusion that threatened to shatter his concentration. Commander. Vexthul stood at the center of the chamber, his once pristine uniform now bearing the scorch marks and battle damage from his encounter with human forces. His report had sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates, challenging fundamental assumptions about galactic order that had remained unchanged. For over 3,000 years, you claim the humans disabled your entire reconnaissance fleet without suffering a single loss, demanded Ambassador Krillnox, her tentacles writhing with agitation. A species that supposedly lacks even basic energy shield technology? Vexthul's multiple vocal cords created a harmony of exhaustion and defeat. Honorable Ambassador, they did not lack the technology. They simply chose not to reveal it until the moment of maximum tactical advantage. Our intelligence assessments were deliberately compromised by human misinformation campaigns that we never detected. Counselor Yathana's scales had turned a deep orange color, indicating extreme distress among her species. Commander, in your report you mentioned that the humans possessed detailed information about our military capabilities, our ship designs, and even personal intelligence about Council leadership. How could a single-system civilization acquire such data? We believe they have been infiltrating our networks for years, Vexthul replied, activating a holographic display that showed the scope of human intelligence gathering. The technical analysis of their equipment suggests they have been reverse engineering captured Council technology since their first contact with Zephyrian forces. But more than that, they have been studying us, learning our weaknesses, planning for this exact scenario. The hologram showed a three-dimensional model of Council space with thousands of red dots, indicating suspected human monitoring stations. The network was vast, sophisticated, and had apparently been operating undetected for years. Every major Council military base, every important shipping route, every critical infrastructure node was under human surveillance. High Chancellor Mordak felt his mandibles clicking involuntarily as he studied the intelligence map. This suggests a level of long-term strategic planning that exceeds anything in our databases about primitive species. Most newly contacted civilizations require decades simply to understand basic galactic politics. There is more, High Chancellor, Vexthul continued grimly. During our imprisonment in the human system, we were forced to witness something that challenges our understanding of warfare itself. The humans were not simply defending their territory. They were conducting what they called a field test. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of environmental systems. The concept of using a major military engagement as a testing ground for experimental weapons was so alien to Council, thinking that several species lacked words to describe it in their own languages. A field test, whispered the Drakmarian representative, his crystalline form pulsing with confused energy patterns. Against a full Council reconnaissance fleet? The gravitational weapons that disabled our ships were prototypes. Their boarding tactics were experimental procedures they had never attempted against Council vessels. Even their information warfare capabilities were being tested in real combat conditions for the first time. Vexthul paused, allowing the implications to sink in. Honorable Council members, we were not the targets of a desperate defensive action. We were laboratory specimens in a human weapons development program. Ambassador Zektar's 4 eyes began blinking in rapid succession, a sign of severe anxiety among his people. If their experimental weapons were capable of neutralizing our most advanced vessels, what capabilities might they possess once those systems are perfected? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Every Council species had risen to galactic prominence by achieving technological superiority over their neighbors. The idea that a primitive species might leapfrog millennia of development through pure innovation was terrifying beyond measure. Perhaps, suggested Councillor Yathana, her voice barely audible, we should consider the possibility that the humans are not actually primitive. Our classification system assumes that technological advancement follows predictable patterns, but what if humanity developed along completely different lines? The suggestion was met with outrage from several military representatives. General Korvash of the Hegemony Defense Forces, a being whose species had conquered 17 different worlds through superior firepower, stood to address the chamber. Impossible. Our xenological assessments are based on 3,000 years of contact with hundreds of species. Technological development follows universal laws. Energy generation, materials science, propulsion systems, weapons technology, all advance according to predictable sequences. The humans cannot simply skip fundamental stages of development. And yet, Vexthul interrupted quietly, they have done exactly that. Their weapons operate on principles that our scientists claim are theoretically impossible. Their ships are constructed from materials that our databases say cannot exist. Their tactical thinking incorporates strategies that violate everything we know about logical military doctrine. Dr. Kelment, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated his own holographic display, showing detailed scans of human physiology and psychology. Perhaps the answer lies not in their technology, but in their nature. Our psychological profiles indicate that humans possess cognitive patterns unlike any other known species. The hologram showed brain scans that made several Council members recoil in horror. The human neural structure displayed levels of complexity and interconnection that seemed impossible for a carbon-based life form. More disturbing, the scan showed evidence of deliberately enhanced mental capabilities. They have modified themselves, Dr. Kelment continued. Not just their technology, but their own biological and cognitive capabilities. The humans who designed these weapons are not the same species that we first encountered 5 years ago. They have been evolving themselves specifically for warfare against us. High Chancellor Mordak felt a chill run through his exoskeleton as he contemplated the implications. A species that could modify its own cognitive abilities could theoretically develop at rates that made traditional intelligence assessments meaningless. But more than that, it suggested a level of dedication to warfare that was almost incomprehensible. High Chancellor, called Communications Director Valthan urgently. We are receiving a transmission from the human system. It is addressed directly to this assembly. Mordak's mandibles clicked rapidly. On screen, the chamber's central hologram activated, revealing the image of a human female in military uniform. Her appearance was unremarkable by galactic standards, but her eyes held an intelligence that made several Council members unconsciously step backward. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. By now, you have received reports of our encounter with your reconnaissance forces. I trust that Commander Vexthul and his crews have returned safely and delivered our message as requested. The Admiral paused, allowing her words to be translated into the dozens of languages represented in the chamber. You are undoubtedly confused by recent events. Your intelligence assessment suggested that humanity was a primitive species that could be easily conquered or intimidated into submission. This assessment was incorrect, but not through any failure on your part. We deliberately encouraged you to underestimate our capabilities. Several Council members began speaking at once, but Admiral Chen's voice continued over their protests. We have been monitoring your communications. studying your military doctrine and analyzing your technological capabilities since our first contact with Zephyrian forces. We have learned everything there is to know about how the Council operates, how it thinks, and most importantly, how it can be defeated. The transmission showed tactical displays that made General Korvash's I-Corps run cold, real-time intelligence on Council fleet movements, detailed analyses of military vulnerabilities, and strategic assessments that exceeded anything in Council databases. The humans had not simply been preparing to defend themselves, they had been preparing to win. We are transmitting complete technical specifications for our defensive systems to ensure that you understand the situation clearly, Admiral Chen continued. You now possess detailed information about human military capabilities. You are welcome to share this data with your military commanders so they can assess their chances of success in a direct confrontation. The data files that accompanied the transmission contained information that would have taken Council scientists decades to develop independently. Gravitational manipulation technology, adaptive armor systems, cognitive enhancement procedures, and weapons designs that pushed the boundaries of theoretical physics. The humans were not simply demonstrating their strength. They were teaching the Council exactly how outmatched they were. We do not wish to destroy the Council, Admiral Chen concluded, her voice carrying a note of. 3 weeks after Admiral Chen's transmission, the Council's war machine began to move with terrible purpose. High Chancellor Mordock had made the decision that would echo through galactic history. Humanity would be crushed before their dangerous ideas could spread to other species. The Omega Fleet, consisting of 5,000 of the most advanced warships ever constructed, began assembling in the neutral zone between Council space and the Sol system. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the enemy build up from her command center deep beneath Luna's surface, her enhanced neural interfaces processing tactical data at speeds that would have killed an unmodified human. The cognitive augmentations that Dr. Kelmant had detected were just the beginning of humanity's transformation. Every human involved in the war effort had voluntarily undergone procedures that pushed their species beyond its natural limitations. Admiral, reported Captain Martinez, her chief intelligence officer, Council forces are maintaining standard formation protocols. 5 fleets of 1,000 ships each organized according to classical battle doctrine. They're not adapting their tactics based on our previous encounter. Chen smiled grimly. The Council's greatest weakness was their inability to conceive of warfare as anything other than a contest of technological superiority. They could not comprehend that humans had been studying their military doctrine for years, identifying exploitable patterns in their strategic thinking. Phase 2. Deployment status? She asked, her consciousness interfacing directly with the command network that linked every human military asset across the solar system. All ghost fleets are in position, replied Commander Okafor from the Mars Orbital Command Station, 3,000 ships fully crewed with volunteers. Project Ragnarok is operating at 95% efficiency. We're ready to begin the demonstration. The demonstration. That was what the military planners called humanity's response to the Omega Fleet. Not a battle, not a defensive action, but a demonstration designed to teach the galaxy that some species could not be conquered at any price. Ma'am, interrupted Dr. Vasquez from her position at the scientific monitoring station, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Council fleet. They appear to be charging some kind of planet-killer weapon. Analysis suggests they intend to destroy Earth from maximum range rather than risk another close engagement. Chen had expected this development. The Council's response to an enemy they could not understand was always the same: complete annihilation. They preferred to reduce entire worlds to radioactive ash, rather than risk the spread of dangerous ideas about resistance and independence. Activate Lazarus Protocol, Chen commanded, her voice carrying across communication networks that spanned the entire solar system, all civilian populations to shelter positions. Begin evacuation of non-essential personnel to the outer colonies. But even as evacuation procedures began, Chen knew that most of humanity's population would choose to remain. The psychological modifications that had enabled their rapid technological advancement had also eliminated the fear response that made other species submit to superior force. Humans had become something that the Council had never encountered before, a species that would choose extinction over surrender, death over slavery, Annihilation over submission. Admiral, called Fleet Captain Singh from the Jupiter defense grid. Ghost Fleet commanders are requesting permission to begin final approach. All crew members have completed their farewell recordings and sealed their final testaments. Chen felt the weight of 3,000 volunteer deaths pressing against her consciousness. But she had learned to carry that burden. Every human who died in this war died to ensure that future generations would be born free. It was a price that her species had decided was worth paying. Permission granted. Execute Valkyrie Protocol. Across the solar system, 3,000 ships began accelerating toward the Council fleet at velocities that pushed their human crews to the limits of survival. Each vessel carried weapons designed not to destroy enemy ships, but to infect them with something far more dangerous: ideas. The Council fleet opened fire when the ghost ships reached extreme range, their combined firepower creating a wall of destructive energy that should have vaporized anything that attempted to pass through it. But the human ships had been designed specifically for this moment. Their hulls incorporated adaptive materials that learned from each impact. Their shields used Council technology turned against itself, and their electronic warfare systems carried viruses designed to spread through enemy networks like digital cancer. As the first wave of ghost ships penetrated the Council defensive grid, they began broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. But this time, they were not transmitting tactical information or military intelligence. They were broadcasting something that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization: the concept of freedom. The transmissions contained detailed information about human history, philosophy, and political theory. They spoke of democracy, individual rights, self-determination, and the radical idea that intelligent beings had the right to choose their own destiny. More importantly, they included instructions for building the weapons and technologies that made resistance possible. Council fleet is attempting to jam our transmissions, reported Communications Chief Patel, but our signals are being amplified by their own communication networks. The viral programs we planted during the reconnaissance mission are functioning perfectly. The Council's most advanced vessels, the pride of 47 different civilizations, were now involuntarily broadcasting seditious ideas to every inhabited world within 50 light-years. Information about human technology, philosophy, and military tactics was spreading through galactic networks faster than any attempt to stop it. High Chancellor Mordak, commanding the Omega fleet from his flagship Eternal Dominion, watched in horror as his own ships turned against him. The human electronic warfare viruses were not simply disrupting his fleet's operations, they were converting his vessels into broadcasting stations for revolutionary propaganda. Admiral Gorthax, he commanded desperately, activate all communication scramblers. Cut physical connections to our networks if necessary. We cannot allow this contamination to spread further. But it was already too late. The human transmissions were being received by monitoring stations throughout Council space, and more disturbingly, by representatives of species that had never before been contacted by galactic civilization. The humans had somehow identified dozens of developing civilizations that the Council had planned to subjugate in future expansion cycles. High Chancellor, reported his communications officer, we are receiving acknowledgement signals from over 200 systems. The humans appear to have established contact with species that our long-range surveys had not yet identified. The implications were staggering. The Council's expansion had always depended on encountering species individually, overwhelming them before they could coordinate resistance or share defensive technologies. But humanity had apparently been building a network of allies among species that the Council did not even know existed. As the second wave of ghost ships reached the Council fleet, they revealed the true purpose of their sacrifice. Instead of ramming attacks or conventional weapons, they carried something that no Council strategist had anticipated: teachers. The ships were crewed not just with soldiers, but with scientists, engineers, philosophers, and historians who had volunteered to share humanity's knowledge with any species willing to learn. Each vessel contained databases filled with technical specifications, strategic analyses, and most importantly, proof that the Council could be defeated. Admiral, called Captain Martinez urgently, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the Council planet-killer weapons. They're preparing to fire on Earth despite their own ships being in the line of fire. Analysis suggests they would rather sacrifice their entire fleet than allow our transmissions to continue. Chen had anticipated this moment. The Council, faced with an enemy they could not defeat through conventional means, would resort to the ultimate expression of their power, the complete destruction of humanity's homeworld. But even this desperate action would serve humanity's purposes. "Activate Phoenix Protocol," Chen commanded, her voice carrying the weight of species-wide determination. "If they want to destroy Earth, let them. But make sure the galaxy sees exactly what they are willing to do to maintain their power." The Phoenix Protocol was humanity's final gift to the galaxy. A complete record of human civilization, its history, achievements, and dreams, designed to survive even the complete destruction of Earth itself. But more than that, it was a demonstration of what the Council truly represented. An empire so desperate to maintain control that it would commit genocide rather than accept the existence of free peoples. As the Council planet-killer weapons reached full charge, every monitoring station in the galaxy prepared to witness the birth of something that had never existed before, a galactic resistance movement led by the ideas of a species that refused to die quietly. The real war was just beginning, and humanity had already won the only battle that truly mattered, the battle for the hearts and minds of every enslaved species in the galaxy. The destruction of Earth lasted exactly 17 minutes and 23 seconds, recorded by thousands of monitoring stations across the galaxy, and transmitted in real time to every inhabited world within 100 light-years. High Chancellor Mordak watched from his flagship as humanity's blue jewel of a homeworld vanished in a cascade of nuclear fire, convinced that he had finally ended the threat to galactic order. He was wrong. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, watching the death of her species' birth world with dry eyes. Every human facility on Earth had been evacuated months ago, their populations relocated to installations throughout the solar system that the Council had never detected. The planet that died in nuclear fire was empty, except for automated transmitters and a message that would echo through galactic history. "Phoenix Protocol activation confirmed," reported Dr. Vasquez, her voice steady despite witnessing the destruction of humanity's origin world. "All backup civilizations are receiving the complete cultural database. The Council just taught the galaxy exactly what they're willing to do to maintain power." The Phoenix Protocol had been humanity's most ambitious project, the establishment of hidden colonies on over 50 worlds throughout the galaxy, each one populated by volunteers who carried the complete knowledge and culture of their species. The Council believed they had destroyed humanity by killing Earth, but they had actually just scattered humanity's children across the stars like seeds in fertile soil. "Ma'am," called Communications Chief Patel, "we're receiving responses from the target species. The Zephyrians are requesting technical assistance for their independence movement. The Korthak Collective is asking for military advisors. The Spiral Federation wants to coordinate joint operations against Council forces." Chen smiled for the first time since the war began. The Council's greatest fear was being realized. Their subject species were learning that resistance was possible, and they had powerful allies willing to help them fight for their freedom. High Chancellor Mordak's moment of triumph lasted exactly 47 minutes. That was how long it took for the first reports to reach him that humanity's transmissions had not ended with Earth's destruction. If anything, they had intensified, now broadcasting from hundreds of sources throughout the galaxy, with a coordination that suggested careful preparation. "High Chancellor," his intelligence chief reported with barely controlled panic, "our long-range sensors are detecting human energy signatures from systems throughout the galaxy. They appear to have established colonies on worlds we have never surveyed." The tactical display in Mordak's command center updated to show red dots appearing across the galactic map like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. Each dot represented a human installation that had just revealed itself, abandoning stealth to openly challenge Council authority. But worse than the human colonies were the green dots that began appearing alongside them. Zephyrian ships moving to rendezvous with human forces, Korthak battle groups abandoning their patrol routes to join the rebellion, Spiral Federation vessels openly defying Council authority for the first time in over 2,000 years. "Impossible," Mordak whispered, his mandibles clicking in distress. "These species have been loyal subjects for millennia. They cannot simply abandon their oaths of allegiance." His intelligence chief activated a holographic display showing intercepted communications between rebel species. High Chancellor, they are sharing human technology. The humans have given them the knowledge to build their own gravitational weapons, adaptive armor systems, and electronic warfare capabilities. Our technological advantages are being systematically eliminated. The scope of humanity's deception was becoming clear. They had not simply been preparing to defend Earth. They had been organizing the largest rebellion in galactic history. Every species that had ever chafed under Council rule. Every world that had been forced to surrender its independence. Every civilization that dreamed of freedom had been secretly contacted and prepared for this moment. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Chen. She is requesting to speak with you directly." On screen, Mordak commanded, needing to understand how his certain victory had transformed into galactic catastrophe. Admiral Chen's image appeared in the command center, her face showing no trace of grief for her destroyed homeworld. Behind her, human and alien technicians worked side by side at stations displaying real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. "High Chancellor Mordak," Chen began, her voice carrying the weight of species-wide determination. "Thank you for providing the galaxy with such a clear demonstration of Council values. The destruction of Earth has done more to unite our allies than 1,000 diplomatic conferences could have accomplished." Mordak felt his ichor freezing as the implications of her words sank in. "You deliberately allowed us to destroy your homeworld. We sacrificed Earth to save the galaxy," Chen replied simply. "Every species now knows exactly what the Council is willing to do to maintain power. You have lost the moral authority that made your empire possible." The tactical display behind Chen showed the true scope of the rebellion. Over 30 species had openly declared independence from Council authority. Human technology was spreading through rebel networks faster than Council forces could respond. Most devastating of all, several Council member species were beginning to question their own loyalty to an empire that would commit genocide to suppress dissent. "This is impossible," Mordak protested. "The Council has maintained galactic order for 3,000 years. You cannot simply destroy a civilization that has brought peace and prosperity to hundreds of worlds." Chen's expression hardened. "Peace built on slavery is not peace, Chancellor. Prosperity purchased with submission is not prosperity. You created an empire by convincing species that resistance was hopeless. We have proven that resistance is not only possible but inevitable." The transmission expanded to show images from across the galaxy. Zephyrian ships destroying Council tax collection stations, Korthak forces liberating labor camps, Spiral Federation vessels protecting refugee convoys fleeing Council territory. The rebellion was spreading faster than any military response could contain it. "You have doomed the galaxy to chaos," Mordak accused. "Without Council authority, these species will turn on each other. There will be endless wars, suffering beyond measure." "Perhaps," Chen acknowledged, "but it will be their choice to make. Free beings have the right to make mistakes, to fail, to learn from their failures and try again. That is what freedom means. The right to determine your own destiny, even if you choose poorly." Behind her, one of the human technicians called out excitedly, "Admiral, the Draconian Empire has just announced their withdrawal from the Council. They're declaring neutrality and requesting humanitarian assistance for Council refugees." Chen smiled coldly. "It appears that even your oldest allies are beginning to question whether your methods are worth preserving." The communication ended, leaving Mordak alone with the growing realization that his empire was collapsing around him. The humans had not simply defeated the Council in battle. They had destroyed the ideological foundation that made Council rule possible. In the weeks that followed, the rebellion spread like wildfire through Council space. Species that had been loyal subjects for millennia suddenly remembered what it felt like to be free. The human colonies provided technology and tactical support, but more importantly, they provided something that no Council species had possessed for generations: hope. The Council's military forces, designed to overwhelm individual worlds rather than fight a galaxy-wide insurgency, found themselves constantly outmaneuvered by rebel forces that shared intelligence and coordinated their attacks through human communication networks. Every victory was temporary. Every defeat was catastrophic. 6 months after the destruction of Earth, High Chancellor Mordak stood in his private chambers aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at reports that confirmed his worst fears. Half the galaxy was in open rebellion. Council member species were declaring neutrality or actively supporting the insurgents, and human colonies were sprouting on worlds throughout what had once been secure Council territory. He had tried to destroy a single primitive species and had instead awakened something that would consume his civilization. The humans had taught the galaxy a lesson that could never be unlearned, that freedom was worth any price, and that any empire built on oppression would eventually face the judgment of those it had enslaved. As he prepared his resignation from the office his family had held for 8 generations, Mordak finally understood what Admiral Chen had tried to tell him. The Council had not lost a war. They had lost the future, and in that future, humanity's greatest victory would not be remembered as the day they defeated the Council, but as the day they taught the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. The age of Council dominance was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun.